men, and I use the term loosely. I'm going to do a little mini review of a couple of Harbor Freight toolboxes. And yeah, I know, Harbor Freight, the V-twin of the tool world. But really, they're not too bad. This box I'm leaning on here, I bought in February 2004, so it's pert near 20 years old. I just bought a new one that is essentially the same, except that it's 4 inches deeper. To kind of put this all in perspective, I got to go into a little bit of why I bought this particular toolbox. I've been a mechanic for 50 years, and I had owned a succession of various toolboxes. I had a Craftsman, I had a Mac. Well, I had many Craftsmans. I think the boxes I was using before this one were 3 Craftsman boxes bolted together on a steel frame that I was rolling around. And, you know, it worked okay, but, you know, the Craftsman boxes really were pretty much junk. But anyway, I bought this one. And when I bought this one, I have been going to all the places where a guy might find toolboxes. The usual suspects, Lowe's, Home Depot, Sears. I have been shagging down tool guys, Snap-on guy, a Mac tool guy, maybe a Cornwall guy, you know, just whoever I could find. And I had been carrying around a micrometer in my pocket, measuring the thickness of the steel of all these toolboxes. And much to my surprise, Harbor Freight had the thickest steel of all the commercially available toolboxes. And in fact, it was as thick as the steel on the Snap-on box, but of course it was 1/10 the price. You know, I'd love to say if money were no object, but money always is an object, and somehow I can't justify spending, you know, $4,000 or $5,000 on a box with wheels when I could spend $450, which is what this box cost. So anyway, the big drawers had double roll ball bearings on it. The wheels look halfway decent. The steel was thick. So I ended up with this Harbor Freight box, and it served me very well for the last 20 years. You know, no problems with it. The reason I'm replacing it is I got tools that are kind of long, and I wanted to be able to store them, you know, flat. So I was in the market for a wider toolbox. Well, wider in this direction. I guess depth would be the word. And I went through the same drill. I measured the steel on this Harbor Freight, wandered around, looked at Craftsman. You know, I knew Snap-on was just price-wise out of the question. It wasn't going to happen. You know, Craftsman, Lowe's, Home Depot brands, Cobalt, whatever was out there. And once again came to the conclusion that Harbor Freight had the thickest steel and the best price. But anyway, that's why I moved on from this one. I wanted one that was deeper in depth. So, mini review of this 20-year-old Harbor Freight box. Some bitch is great. For the money, you can't beat it. And we're going to go look on the internet here in a minute at what other boxes, how thick the steel is on other boxes. This 20-year-old box, hard to beat. So anyway, the question arises, why did I decide that I needed this toolbox? Well, a couple, 3-4 months back, I bought this one here, and I didn't realize it was 4 inches deeper than the old U.S. General toolbox. So now I had a side box that was sticking out farther than the front of the old side box. And as it so happens, I've got a lot of tools that are long like this, and I've been kind of storing them cattywampus in the little box because there was no other way to do it. So You know, you get a long tool like that, you got a long drawer, everything fits much more nicely. So I thought, you know, it'd be nice if I had a lower cabinet that was 4 inches wider too, so I could take advantage of the deeper drawers. So I decided to buy this. So I started shopping around and looking on the internet. And of course, when I'm looking on the internet, I'm trying to find out what gauge steel everything is made out of. And I'll show you an example in a little bit. But a lot of the toolboxes on the internet, like Yukon was one of them, Craftsman was another one, Husky was another one, they were only made out of 21 gauge steel. And 21 gauge steel is only 0.32 inches thick. Well, actually closer to 0.33. And I didn't want a piece of crap 21 gauge steel toolbox. So I started looking. And I found this box on Harbor Freight. This is a U.S. General Series 2. Harbor Freight did not have the gauge of steel anywhere on their website. So I called Harbor Freight. Their salespeople didn't know. Their tech people didn't know, but they gave me the number to a U.S. General Tech person, and he gave me the gauges of the steel. The top and the back are supposedly 17 gauge, and the sides are supposedly 16 gauge, and the drawers are 19 gauge. Well, I measured them all up, and it does turn out to be correct. This toolbox was $359. I thought, what the hell? How could that be? It's cheaper and bigger than the old U.S. General toolbox that I bought. This is a Series 2, and this is being discontinued. You could only buy, well, for the most part, you could only buy their Series 3. And I was thinking about buying one of those. It was bigger. It was more expensive, and I assumed the steel was as thick or thicker than this. But I didn't like the drawer layout. I'm the kind of guy that likes more smaller drawers because I have smaller things. If I had bigger, heavier tools, I probably would want the Series 3 because the drawers there were fewer drawers, but they were deeper and wider. But anyway, that's how I ended up with this guy here. So here are the sizes. As per U.S. General Tech, what the measurements were supposed to be, and then the actual measurements of the new toolbox sizes. As you can see, they were off a little bit on the top. They were a gauge lighter than the tech reported it to be. So here are the actual measured sizes in terms of, skin thickness of the old box, the new box, and my Cobalt top box. As you can see, the Harbor Freight bottom boxes are considerably thicker than the Cobalt box. And you'd expect the bottom box to be thicker because it's got to carry a lot more weight. And I went to the internet and started looking at toolbox skin thickness, and just a few random ones for you. Not all of the descriptions list the thicknesses, but here's a Boxo. You gotta love the name Boxo. Give me a Boxo box. 18 gauge apparently throughout. And here's a Craftsman, apparently 18 gauge steel throughout. And here's a Husky bottom box made out of heavier 21 gauge steel. Heavier than what, 22? Yeah, that's about as cheap as you could get. And here's another Husky, a stainless steel version sold by Jegs. I've looked at these stainless steel boxes and I kind of thought I might want one. But once again, it is made out of heavier 21 gauge steel. That's about as thin a metal as you could use on something like this, I would think. And here's one that really kind of pisses me off. A company called Tool Vault, which I had never heard of until I started randomly looking for toolboxes. This thing really premiumly priced at pert near $3,000. Yet the shell is made out of 18 gauge steel as opposed to 16 gauge on the U.S. General, and the drawers are made out of 20 gauge as opposed to 19 gauge on the U.S. General. So certainly no premium material used here, yet they have premium price in place. Of course, not all of the properties of a good toolbox are related to how thick the metal is. A lot of it has to do with the wheels. And you notice the rubber part here is very thin. On those toolboxes I've had that have had the thicker, wider rubber, I've had problems with those because it's much like a car. If you've got a low-profile tire, like a Corvette or a Camaro would have, those low-profile tires have less flex in the sidewall, and they just ride better. Same thing to a certain degree with tires on a toolbox. The fatter the tire, the more likely it is to get a flat spot on the bottom. The fatter tires tend to roll off of the rims a little bit, especially when you got a heavy box. So I prefer the narrow, low-profile rubber wheels that this thing has on it. This toolbox is probably not going to get much rolling around the garage, but if you worked in an environment where you were, wheeling it across a garage or wheeling it across a hangar, I think for long wear you're going to want the low-profile tires. One of the things I like to do is screw my socket rails down to a piece of plywood that's underneath this rather cheesy black vinyl that comes with this thing. And, I don't know if you can tell by looking at it, but trust me, this drawer is very heavy. Very heavy. I've had these pieces of plywood out with the sockets screwed to them, and they're heavy. Point being is that despite how heavy they are, this thing slides as if it was on glass. And of course, the smooth sliding can be attributed to the double row ball bearings. Really nice. So, it just has a feel of quality to it. It's nice. The two big drawers, well, actually the three big drawers, one big one across the top, a big one on the bottom, and then a little smaller deep drawer down on the right over here, all have double row ball bearings, and they all work equally well. So very nice. Other thing is the paint. I don't know if this is paint or powder coat. It probably says somewhere, but what it is offhand, I don't know. Nice. The Series 1 cabinets, the originals, of which this side box is one, have kind of a pebble surface, rough paint. It's not easy to keep this clean. It seemed like oil absorbed into it and grease. And I've known guys who wax their toolbox. I'm not one of those guys, but I do like to keep the crud off. And this has wiped off cleanly and nicely. So a nice paint job on there. I like it. So then, having passed the QA inspections and acceptance inspections, I guess it's time for this toolbox to be officially indoctrinated. So we're going to go ahead and give her a little Sportster decal over here. The new toolbox has been fixed up with the normal complement of mandatory stickers. Of course, they're all available. Links are down below. Order yourself some. The deeper drawers have let me make better use of my space. It's made organizing the tools easier. I used to cram these into a smaller area, and it was just harder to get stuff in and out. But anyway, I really like these wide, deep drawers. I'm just able to get things a little bit better organized. And, if you're in and out of something a couple of 100 times a day, you want it to be well organized. You just want it that way. Anyway, very happy with this thing. Highly recommend U.S. General toolboxes. Harbor Freight and U.S. General, they have made tremendous strides in quality over the last years, and they're kind of a serious tool maker these days. I like them. I use this stuff. This was made in China, and at least they give it a name that sounds American. U.S. General. That sounds American. But anyway, I am out of here. Thanks for watching. Get yourself some stickers. Get yourself some coffee cups. See the links below, and there'll be more later. Bye.